If you feel exhausted, overwhelmed, or stuck, if depression has been weighing on you, if addiction has been a part of your story, or if you're carrying the shame, loneliness, or a sense of hopelessness you don't know how to name, this space is for you. Recovery is not about perfection. It is about honesty. It's about connection. And most of all, it's about transformation. One conversation, one truth, one step at a time. I'm Randy, and we're here to talk openly about the struggles, the setbacks, and the moments that redefine us. Because healing begins when we stop suffering in silence. So take a breath. You're not alone. Let's have some transformation talks. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Transformation Talks. My name is Randy. And tonight, y'all, we have a very special guest, Mr. Jason Frazier. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate
it. Thank you for being here, man. It's been an honor. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
As far as a little bit about myself, it depends on where you want to go as far as how far back you want to go. Grew up as a pastor's kid, so I'm a preacher's kid. So I had a lot of spiritual and religious things, bestowed in me early in my life, in my childhood. Ended up moving to Tennessee, I think when I was about 10, to Johnson City. Johnson City ended up in Mohawk. From Mohawk, ended up in Hawkins County. Went back to college in South Carolina again for a couple of years. From Hawkins County, that's pretty much where a lot of trouble began. And basically, I think like 20 years later, back into Johnson City, which is where I'm located now.
Okay, so originally, though, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Okay, gotcha. And you were there for how long?
Up until about the fourth grade.
Fourth grade, and then you came up this area?
Came up to this area.
Cool. Okay. Overall, like your connection with like family and parents and stuff, your siblings and stuff, do you have siblings? And
yeah, I have one sister, my mother and my father. My father's passed away. My sister has 3 kids. I have 2 kids of my own. And we have finally been able to reunite almost the whole family back together after many, many years.
So would you say your childhood growing up with your parents' connection was pretty good, or?
Yeah, I had a great upbringing, honestly, man. I grew up where my father was an athletic coach. He coached all 3 of the female sports in Garden City Christian School in South Carolina, in Orangeburg. I got to be taught, or I was taught how to perform in athletics at an early age.
Okay. And what'd you play?
Athletics-wise, I would play anything that had a ball involved, I guess.
Gotcha.
A lot of basketball. We played soccer when I was younger. My dad coached the softball team, so I got to learn how to run bases at an early age. He used me as a testing dummy for his team to run the bases, and they had to basically try and catch me, awesome, to see if they could get me out.
Gotcha, man. So, all right, so then let's move forward a little bit. You move up here to Hawkins County area and stuff, and you said it's 4th grade?
No, I moved to Johnson City.
Oh, Johnson City.
Yes.
Okay. And around that time, noticing anything like as far as still great family life and everything?
Yeah. My father received a position at Antioch Baptist Church in Johnson City as a family life minister. So transitioned from coaching, being I think he was doing the Bible classes, study classes at Garden City Christian School. Took the position as a family life minister within the church at Antioch. And then everything was good with me. Upbringing was good. Athletics were thriving. My mom and dad still loving. All of those things, that a lot of people don't get to be a part of. My mom's a teacher, and so I was homeschooled at one point in Johnson City.
Okay.
It's just I was not a very good student when it came to reading and comprehending and understanding the ADD and ADHD that I possessed at an early age. I was diagnosed, I think, in like 2nd or 3rd grade of being high ADD and ADHD. So it's very challenging for me to learn things. I don't think they had enough research and education and stuff back then to learn how to operate with children of ADD and ADHD at that time. So it was very challenging for me.
Okay. And so as time progressed through the school systems and as you're growing up and stuff, did you find yourself at any turn wanting to, how should I put it? I know for myself, as I was getting older and stuff, there was a part of me that
could never find a sense of belonging as I was growing up. So did you ever experience any of that in your as you're getting older, or anything?
Yeah. Um, I don't think that it's like a lot of people's stories and situations and how I am today. Like I think a lot of it was the fact that at an early age it was very traumatic for me to actually change states. You know what I mean? Being 9 years old, 10 years old, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to create a relationship or be friends um with people at all. And so it was something where I went being almost a whole lot too much
Hmm.
in the school system, to when we made the transition. Then I ended up being the kid in the class that was very shy, very quiet, very standoffish, um question my belonging, like what we're talking about right now, not fitting in, don't feel like I fit in. And so I had to deal with that with the transition into Johnson City, for the first time changing schools. With that being said, the transition from Johnson City into Greene County, I ended up going to West Greene High School and moving into that school system as well. It's just another traumatic where I'm trying to build friendships and relationships. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what I'm doing, and then I'm having to move again. My father takes another position inside of a church. He takes his first pastorate position in Mohawk, which is in Greene County. And so the whole transition through that again, once again, I'm in a situation where I don't feel like I fit in.
So not a lot of stability at this point in your life.
Not as far as consistency in the same area, no. As far as like parenting, absolutely there was stability and consistency with my family and my parenting for
Right,
sure.
right. I got you. But kind of having trouble with connection and connectivity with other people.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. And so let's move on a little bit to where like high school and stuff. So like you're getting into high school and stuff. Are you partying? Are you what's that look like for Jason as you're in high school? And
I'm not partying, man. I'm not doing any of those things at all. I'm very focused. Like I said, I had a great upbringing. My father being a pastor, at this point, my mother being a school teacher. Um, I was very sheltered
Mhm.
early in my childhood, going into high school, all these things. And my mom and dad always told me like, you are who you hang out with. And like they were very stereotypical about people, which obviously they knew more than I did. And they're like, you shouldn't hang out with them, they're probably doing this, blah blah blah. And it's the reality that they were aware of that like I had no idea. And so being a child, being a preteen, being a teenager, like I don't understand really what they're saying, but I listen to what they're saying. My dad was very stern and very hard on me when it came to direction. Um he did the best that he could with what he knew. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
My mom and dad, neither one of them grew up with any type of parenting at all. You know what I mean? So it was, I don't really know how, to acknowledge all of that at that age. You know
Right.
what I mean? I ended up going into college on athletic scholarship, playing baseball at Southern Western University. And for the first time, I'm out from underneath my mom and dad's eyes and protection. And basically, one day it just ended up being bad days, and I didn't have anybody there. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how the whole transformation went. As far as high school goes, man, I had a goal, I had a dream, I had a vision. I was very determined. I was a terrible student, but a great athlete. I ended up getting athletic scholarship to go play baseball at Southern Western University. Um, and at that point, my mom, like, there was no way that they ever thought that any type of transitioning into drinking or using or anything existed at that point. There's no way, not my child. I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
Okay. So when was your first experience with drugs or alcohol?
First experience, probably my freshman year in college. Um, And for me, it was kind of a scary ordeal because all of my life I had been told, that drugs are bad, alcohol is bad, you need to stay away from it, it'll ruin your life, it'll damage you. Like all of this stuff that they said was true about it. That like
Same.
so it scared me to an extent to try it, but like at the same time, like my best friend had started venturing into it. All the people that I played sports with were either drinking or getting high some way, form, or fashion.
Mhm.
So once again, I'm moving from school to school to school, and now I'm in a completely different state, and all that stuff is changing. And so the pressure is like really on me, still trying to figure out like how do I fit in. understand, where do I fit in?
Mm-hmm.
Where is my place?
Right.
You know, and that part was very, very difficult.
Okay. So, like you said, you experienced the thing when you're in college and stuff like
Yes.
that. How? I guess my question is going to be is for you, like, how long were you on that road with dealing with the battles of addiction and stuff?
How long was I on it? I've had 20 years active with addiction.
And you're currently, how long are you clean now?
I'm coming up on 5 years clean, 6 years, 8 years without a drink.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's
So,
wild.
so, but as you've transitioned now into like your recovery and stuff, and as you're doing and you're working on yourself, what are some key things that you're seeing was like the main focal point as to why you dove into to get hooked on the drugs and alcohol?
Why did I dive into the using and drinking to begin with?
Yeah.
One, I wasn't being sheltered. So for the first time ever, I'm having the opportunity to make decisions on my own, whether good or bad. You know, and I've not really ever had that. My parents have always made the decisions for me. I've had a little bit of input, but for the most part, I've not had much say so. And so being in the position of not having any parenting, any guidance, you know, nobody, you know, sheltering me in any form or fashion, you know, I found myself alone. And still, because all the moving, I found myself trying to fit in. I found myself dealing with emotional things without anyone trying to coach me or guide me or teach me these things. And to be honest, like, I'm not really for sure that my mom and dad were even equipped to be able to deal with the emotional and mental side of what it was that we deal with at age 18, 19, 20. Because, you know, for them it was way different than it was for us in the 90s. You know, from the 90s till today, it's still different on how they have to do anything. And so, like, we're evolving in the knowledge that we have and the wisdom that we have on how to deal with these things. But back then there was none. Like, maybe they had the signs, but like, I don't think they had the tools, you know, to try and help me if I'm doing bad, if I'm not thinking properly. A lot of my mom and dad's solutions and answers were spiritual. It wasn't any type of textbook. It was always God based. It was always, you know, the Jesus Christ and the Lord. And it was really weird to finally sit back today and be like, okay, they knew what they were talking about. Like, all of these things that they told me in the sheltering that they did for me, like, it finally makes a little more sense to me today. I'm a little more equipped today to deal with my children than they were, you know, years ago.
So, okay, so that brings up a good point. I got a question. So you're being brought up as a preacher's kid,
Yes.
and going into church and everything, and all these things. So when you're on your own and you're starting to make all these decisions by yourself, what does your faith and connection with God look like at that moment in time? Is it as locked in as it was, like you said, being told, you know, to do this? You've been told the whole time by your parents, you know, how basically how to live your life, so to speak, and now you're on your own making your own decisions. Does that waver any in any, like, when you're going through your issues with your addiction and stuff like that? I mean, is God still at the forefront, or is he kind of
I'm not really convinced that God was really ever at the forefront to begin with,
right?
because I didn't get to make a choice or a decision for a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like a lot of the decision making was by them, and like, if the church was open, we're in the church. When the doors are open, we're in that. And so, like, those things were kind of programmed into me, and it was almost like a religious ordeal years ago, which is kind of normal today to think about it in that manner. The religious aspect of it back then was, because I'm going, I'm okay. Because I'm going, I'm protected. Because I'm going, I'm doing the things I need to do, and because of all of these things, I'm okay. And I never had the understanding of what it meant to actually have a personal relationship with my creator. I had no idea what that meant at all. So, like, I had no way of practicing it, even though my mom and dad was like, well, you need to pray, you need to pray. And it's like, I don't even know what that means.
Right.
Like, I understand the concept of I'm praying, but like, what am I doing when I'm praying?
Mm-hmm.
And so today, you know, I get to understand a little bit more today. Like, I'm building a relationship with something that is way greater than myself.
Right.
I'm building a relationship I'm having a conscious contact at any given moment, any given time today. Like I can call upon the Lord, and the Lord is there. Whereas I did not understand that early.
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have understood that early, maybe things would have been different. But more than likely, probably not.
Right.
I think a lot of us, we want to we want to test the waters,
Mm-hmm.
especially being sheltered. We want to test the waters, and it's like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Well, can I get away with it? I think that was one of the biggest ones. Like, can I get away with it? And so that was a lot of that not really knowing, thinking that we had an idea, when all honesty, I don't think we really had an idea of what it was we were doing to begin with.
Right. See, so you drive a good point. So whenever I was growing up, my mother, she did child abuse work for years, right? So she dealt with the cops and the drugs and everything like that. So I was told at the same time, hey, don't be doing that stuff. Like I was told, hey, you can't go watch cops. So like I'm like, well, I'm gonna go to my buddy's house. So I'm gonna go watch cops. You know, it's one of those things, right?
Yeah.
And then I volunteer with the fire department, man. It's like even then when I'm running these medical calls and I'm running all this stuff and I'm seeing people, for instance, we had a situation one time where somebody had basically passed out at a gas pump. It's unbeknownst to me, but now I know that it was what they call an overdose. You know, and it's like at the time my brain is still processing the fact of like, why would somebody do this to themselves? Right. And then I end up going through that same thing. So yeah, so like I get what you're saying about the whole like being on your own, making your own decisions, because it's like it's such. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it's like, you know, all the times of being told, well, don't do this because this is going to happen. It's like, I really want to see if this is going to be as bad as what they're saying, you know? So where in 20 years of your active addiction, where was your one point to where you're like, enough's enough? Like, what was that one thing that you were just like, you're rock bottom to where you're just like,
Okay, so I've done 13 years in and out of prisons and jails out of the 20. So with my 20 years of active addiction, alcoholism, all of this partying and stuff, 13 of those have been in and out. So I've spent 13 behind bars, one way, form, or fashion. I think because my mom and dad were religious, spiritual individuals, I have always felt the presence of the Lord. I've always been able to recognize it some way, form, or fashion, because I've been exposed to it through my mom and through my dad. So there has always been time that I've always felt protected. Okay, spiritually protected. You know, my mother and father prayed over me. You know, they're talking about being chosen, the things that like there's a protection over me. I have a calling. My life is ordained, all of these things that they've said. I have gone through all my jail and prison times, man, and like it's really never been that bad. And that may be a little crazy for a lot of people to hear it, but in all honesty, like it's never really been that bad for me. You know, I've always been the person that people are trying to get to know due to the byproduct of my addiction, which was selling drugs. And so people weren't really trying to make my life harder. They like the fact that they have connections with the person that is able to get them. And so like it's been something that has been with me throughout my whole jail and prison times, and I've not really ever had a lot of issues like that. It wasn't until after my dad passed away in like 2017, I was in jail, and my dad passed away, and I did not deal with that part very well. My dad was my best friend, regardless of the relationship where it was at the end. I have a lot more great memories of my father than I do the bad ones, and the great ones and good ones outweigh the bad ones. But when my dad passed away, there was a part of me that kind of went with him. You know what I mean? I didn't handle it well. I started doing things I normally wouldn't do. I started end up being involved in stuff that I normally wouldn't be involved in. And to be a little more detailed about that, it's the whole like weed and pills were a lot of my issues. So
Right.
it's what I preferred. You know, I'm not like them. I don't do meth. I don't do coke. I don't smoke crack. I don't use a needle. All of these things. And so it was like, oh, I'll never do these things. I don't like what it looks like. I don't like the company. And so therefore I'm like, well, I ended up being involved in all of that after my dad was. You know, so when I got out of jail in 2017, I started realizing that almost everybody was using a needle and almost everybody was using, you know, methamphetamine, ice, things of that nature. And so it really changed the dynamics of my MO. You know, my MO basically is selling pills, selling weed, things of that nature. And so now it's at the point where like people don't want them, all they want is ice. And so me being who I am at that moment, I switched it up and I started doing those same things. And so that's how I kind of got caught in that shuffle. With all of that being said, using the needle and everything, I was selling needles before I was using the needles, man. I ended up using the needles, and like it opened up my eyes to a completely different world of what I've watched people that I did not understand. Like I wanted to understand, like, what is it about this that gets you guys? What is it about it that destroys your lives in these manner? And I remember telling them while I was in jail in 2000, I was like, I'm gonna try it. I'm just curious, and all of these things happen, man. I ended up in a psychosis, probably drug induced to start with. I ended up in a psychosis where basically I had lost all my sanity. I probably should have ended up in a straitjacket in a padded room. The psychosis of hearing things and seeing things that other people couldn't hear and see. Shadow people, tree people, you know, the people in the walls, the basements, the attics, the list goes on and on and on. Right. The camouflage people with the firearms outside in the woods, everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so like I got to this point of insanity, and at that moment in time, like you could have never told me that it wasn't real, because I see it, I hear it, it's real to me, whether it exists or whether it doesn't exist. And I'm not going to get into the conspiracy part of all of that, but like exactly. The reality of it is like it was real to me, and even today, regardless of what anybody wants to say, it was still real to me. And so I'm at probably the lowest point, not probably, like I'm absolutely at the lowest point in my life. I ended up being followed by the feds, caught my federal charge during this time. Did all of my federal time. I didn't get any type of halfway housing or anything like that. I flattened it all, came back out, and like within 3 weeks, I was right back at to the selling of stuff and doing things like that again. It took a long time for the psychosis to disappear from the first time. And so when I came out and I ended up doing the same things again, this was January 5th of 2021 when I got out of the feds. I think it was January 28th. I was at the point of turning myself into detox. You know, I'd actually been so far out there. And it wasn't really that I was getting high, it was just a psychosis of everything just capitalized all over me again. I actually called my federal probation officer and asked him, like, is there a reason why I'm being followed and watched again? And he was like, Jason, you've been getting high. And I was like, yeah, there's no reason in lying. You're on me. You got me. You know what I mean? And so he gave me the opportunity to go into detox, man. And at this point, like, that was probably the hardest thing and the most difficult and challenging thing that I've ever done, dude. Suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts. It was very, very bad. The hearing, the voices in my head that sounded like my children being raped and beaten, my mom being raped and beaten, threats within my head telling me basically that they're going to be doing all of these things to my family. It was very, very difficult, and like I'm living in fear.
But not knowing who they were.
Not getting into the conspiracy part of it.
Understood. No, I understand.
You know, can I put a finger on it? No, I can't put a finger on it.
Gotcha.
Which makes me insane.
Understood.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was probably the basis of what my rock bottom looked like, man, and being in fear and living in fear, being controlled by something. Like literally I was being manipulated and controlled into any place that I was going. At that moment in time, through all of this, I found it to be very dangerous, not just for me, but for people around me. So I stayed away from my mom. I stayed away from my kids. And it was, that was I didn't look at it like, okay, I got a problem and I need to go get help. I actually reached out seeking for help. Mm-hmm. I actually went to the jail and had the same conversation with somebody at the jail about the same thing I had the conversation with my federal probation officer about. And my mom went with me. And like my mom was supporting the fear and everything that was going on. I don't know how she made it. I'm just being honest. Like I had the whole house barricaded, but I don't know how she made it. And luckily I was given an opportunity to go into detox, man. The hardest journey that I ever done. The detox, they came and got me and took me into evaluation at the hospital, from evaluation into Woodridge. And that's where all of it kind of really hit. So 2018. So 21 at this time.
Okay, so detox. How long are you in detox for?
I don't know.
You don't know? No.
7 days, 10 days,
No clue.
whatever the criteria was for somebody in my position.
Right. I understand. Okay, so let's get into the transition, the beautiful transition of what we call recovery, man. What's it look like for Jason when he's like first being introduced into recovery? Like, is there someone coming into detox and talking to you, or how's that look?
No, I don't really remember too much of the detoxing process.
Understand.
That was pretty intense.
Yeah.
I was looking for loose screws in windows and trying to get out in the winter with
Gotcha.
snow on the ground with no shoes on. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can relate to that. People came in when I finally went into rehab. People were coming in. And like I was still paranoid, I was still seeing things and hearing things. I was still in an induced psychosis. And this took place for many months after this. And it was like I was scared to stay, but I was scared to go. Like it was that bad. I have no idea what I'm doing. Faith of a mustard seed. That like I'm trying to reach out to God. I'm trying to call out to this God that I believe is true. And he showed up a little bit at a time, The 28-day program that I did, man, was absolutely the most difficult thing that I've probably ever done in my whole life. It is my most treasured chip that I possess. Without that chip, the rest of it doesn't exist for me at all. It was absolutely a mark of how difficult it was for me. People came into rehab, man. They were talking about this life that I had growing up earlier. Like I understood that it existed and it was there. I had an idea of what it could look like again. I just did not know if I was ever going to come out of this psychosis phase that I had been in for so long. Little bit by little bit, it started getting better and better and better. They put me on some psych meds, which I'm not a fan of. I didn't want to do it, but it's like, hey, if you think it might help me, I'm willing to try it. I just want this to stop. I'm scared to death. I'm ready for it to stop.
So as you're progressing on in your recovery and stuff, you're starting to get, I guess you're starting to get things back, and life's starting to look a little bit better than it was before.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
I was a fortunate one, man. When I came into recovery, into a housing, I went into sober living housing. I came into sober living housing, and I was very fortunate and very lucky. I had a driver's license. I had access to a vehicle.
Same.
Where I had been in the feds, my mom actually kept the stimulus. It was during the COVID ordeal. My mom actually kept the stimulus checks for me. That way, when I got out, I wasn't dependent upon going back to doing the same things that I was doing. Very grateful for my mother and her intelligence from time to time. And so like
Moms are great.
yeah, so I come into a program that I know nothing about.
Right.
I go into housing that I know nothing about. I don't know what AA rooms are. I don't know what an AA book is. I don't know what recovery is, and none of these things, period, whatsoever. I have no idea. In the area that I grew up in, addiction wise, these aren't things that are talked about. It's very neglected. There is no recovery. I think some recovery is starting to go into that area now. But during my time there, there was never a chance or an opportunity for me to ever get help. I had the car, I had the license, I had some finances. I ended up on an ITTS grant due to being on psych meds. And so like I'm not aware of it at this time, but like God is doing things for me that I can't do for myself from day one. And I don't know that that's what that is at the time. It's not until later, after I'm doing some work, making steps, continuously praying, all the suggestions that they give us, that I look back many months later, and I can finally start seeing God for who He is and how He operated in my life. It wasn't anything that was like some like people talk about this new life, and like the new life, you actually transition into this new life without realizing it and recognizing it. You're doing all the things that you're supposed to be, and in the reality of it is like you're in that life and you're living it already. Just you have to have somebody on the outside saying, hey, that's what it is. Hey, you're doing it. You know what I mean? And that was the thing for me, man. God just started showing up little bit. A lot of my prayers during this time was for my sanity, to restore my heart, restore my soul, restore my mind, to don't let me be like this forever. And not that I'm saying today, but here I am today.
Right. Same. So I want to go back for a second though. So you're saying in school and stuff, especially like jumping around and moving to different places and stuff, how you kind of became reclusive. Like, right, like you said, you became more shy and like standoffish and stuff. So if we fast forward now into recovery and stuff, what does it look like for Jason as he's walking into recovery, trying to build connection and connectivity with other people? Are you still that same shy person, or is it
Like today, or at the beginning of my journey?
at the beginning of your journey?
At the beginning of my journey, I had no idea what an AA book was. I had no idea what an NA program or book was, or how it operated. And so like the only thing I had any type of reference and experience to was growing up and being in a Christian household. And so like when I go to the meetings, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm having to be taught all of these things, how to even introduce myself. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting, I can't say scrutinized, but like people are telling me, hey man, this is what we need to do. Hey, man. And so I'm learning all these things. The only thing that I really had relatable experiences with was when people started talking about God. And I would go to these meetings and I would be waiting and listening for the opportunity for somebody to say God, because that's the only experience that I understood. And it wasn't a full understanding, it was just the most understanding that I had. You know what I mean? When they're talking about all the things that goes along with the step work, like I have no clue. I have no clue what they're talking about. I can't relate to it. I'll just keep going and keep going and keep going until it finally starts making some sense to me. So when the God opportunity comes up and people want to talk about how God's done this and God's done that and what it looks like and how it moves, like I was able to capitalize on not being shy. And it was, I guess it was just an awareness of knowing where my experience existed and where my experience didn't exist.
So like I'm not like that social butterfly if I don't have those things in my system, right? So I guess my question to you is, now that you're in this process of being sober and you're doing the recovery journey and stuff, is there a difference? Like are you more sociable under the influence of the drugs and alcohol compared to when you're sober? Like what?
Well, while selling drugs and being in that part of my life, I was very cautious of who I talked to and associated and hung out with, and the words we used and how we communicated, and like I would pick and choose who I would associate with and affiliate with anyway when it comes to things like this. And so I had taught myself to like be skeptical of everyone. And then on top of it, being in this psychosis when I came into recovery, the psychosis part of it, um pretty much kept me at a point of like, I don't trust people. I think for many months I still thought that like the police were still after me, and I still thought people were chasing me, you know, even while being on my psych meds and everything. And it took me, like I said, it took me a long time to get through that part of it. I was open to some suggestions that I had heard and what the program or what the rehab had taught me, the tools that they had gave me. I was willing to take suggestions. I had been convinced that every idea that I had was a completely terrible one, and to be open to the reality of somebody being able to lead or guide me or give me a solution that may possibly work. And so I was open to the suggestions and the solutions, and I was willing to give them a shot, and I was willing to try those. And if they didn't work, obviously I'm not going to try it again, or at least attempt not to try it again. But it was very difficult, not really difficult, it was very strange, dealing with, okay, you're an addict, you're an alcoholic, but you're not acting like the addict and alcoholic. And so like there was a difference there, and because there was a difference there, whether I understood it or I didn't understand it, like I was a little more open to people. I was still very standoffish with people that were not in the housing that I was living in. The trusting of people I did not have, and I was learning to try and trust people. Obviously, the ones in the house with me were the ones that I was being around the most, and I was starting to trust the most. Other people, it kind of slowly came with time and with experience. I'm still learning how to have relationships today. Still trying to remove my pride and my ego. I remember growing up through high school and even in my addiction, like if you didn't look a certain way, if you didn't talk a certain way, if you didn't listen to the same kind of music, if you didn't believe in the same things I believed in, if you didn't like what I liked, if you didn't dislike what I disliked, like if all of those things didn't match up, I didn't think that we were compatible. Whether it's a relationship, sexually or intimately, or whether it's just a relationship, you know, out in public with friends and acquaintances. All of that stuff was very confusing for me. I hope that answered a little bit as far as what that goes, because it's still difficult today.
Right.
Because the old me still wants to perform
Right.
with wedges and walls with people.
It's still process.
Still, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm way better at it today than I used to be. I'm way more open to people today. My trust and faith in God today allows me to remove those walls and trust in that what He's doing.
Okay, so another question I've got for maybe somebody out there that's listening right now that may be struggling, maybe on that fence of wanting to turn the page, so to speak, of their own, personal battles that they're experiencing with drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, whatever kind of vice maybe they're dealing with. What would you suggest as far as, if you're talking to someone today and someone's, I really want to do this, but I'm really scared. Like, what would be a solid piece of advice you could give somebody that just
The biggest thing for me, I think, somebody asked me like what was the hardest thing to quit doing, when it came to stopping this or stopping that or trying something new. And like for me, when it came to drugs and alcohol, when it came to the whole prison system and all of this behavior that I did, um the hardest thing for me to do was like quit running. I'm running from all my fears. I'm running from all my insecurities. I'm running from my faith. I'm running from this God that I believe exists, because it's like, okay, I believe this God exists, but like there's so much asked out of me to be able to follow this God. And I have this idea in my head, and I have this fear in my head that like I'm not ever going to be able to mount up to it. And because I'm not ever going to be able to mount up to it, it keeps me in that lockdown position. It keeps me from moving forward in what I'm doing, as I'm running from it again. And so like somebody asked me one day, like how did you get to that point? Like what was the biggest thing that you quit doing, or however the question was asked? And like for me, it was like, man, I got tired of running. I don't even know what I'm running from. I have no clue what I'm running from. Like, am I running from myself? And like now, later on, I'm starting to realize, like, man, I was running from myself. I was scared of myself.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm not familiar with who I am.
Right.
I'm induced with drugs and alcohol. I'm induced with the world and the secular music and the pornography and all these things that was displayed and produced and programmed into me, that where I found my self-worth when I finally removed all these things and I wanted to do something different. Like I'm scared to death, man.
Yeah.
I'm scared to death that like I'm not going to be able to perform in a an acceptable manner.
Right.
Whether it be spiritually, worldly, whatever it is, there's like I'm not worthy, I'm not capable, I'm a complete disaster all the way across the board.
And it's funny that you're talking about the running thing, because I always try to crack a joke with that for myself, right? Like I always try to say I've always been a runner. Right? I'm no track star, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not a track star, but I've always been a runner, right?
Yeah.
I always run from things that make me uncomfortable, which goes back to that conversation we had outside for the podcast, right? Like the whole learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just such a powerful thing, man. Jason, I'm so glad that you showed up tonight, dude.
Thank you, man.
And was wondering, would you be able to come back? Would you want to come back for a second, third episode?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
There's so much to what it is that we're doing here today. Like it's almost endless. There's so much information out there, not just for me, just in general.
Yes. Well, man, thank you for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Transformation Talks. My name is Randy. Tune in every Friday at 6 p.m. to the Facebook and YouTube channel.